Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. To interpret art, the listeners, it is up to. Disclaimer: the talking points in this video are subjective, and in comparison to other videos we've made, this is going to be on the longer side. You've been warned. First of all, my overview on the lyrics. An incredible short piece of literature that somehow captured the nuances of the relationship between a father and a son, but definitely not particular to the Panayotus. In short, it's about daddy issues. It is about him and his father. And if you get to know about a man well enough, this is a story about every man. You think different verses can't be about different people? People? Wait till you hear one of my absolute favorite songs of Adele, He Won't Go. Warning, very emotional. In my humble opinion, the most hurting song from Adele's catalogue. He pulled a pretty clever play on words between the first two verses and the next two, to write about his views and his father's as he perceived. He is Greek Cypriot, and in another 100 words or so, I will try to explain to you how that's why the lyrics makes total sense. You might not know this, but as religious Southern Europeans, they neither consider themselves as being white, nor want to go down south, you know where. That might just be a gag. But for the record, this is true. They have masculine and feminine forms of a word, or, well, words like Latin. 2 or even 3 words describing the same concept, with similar spelling, only differs from each other by the endings. So in some instances like invitations or announcements, people started to use asterisks in places of the differentiating letters. You know, to include not just men, but also women in these situations. And in 2025, the idea of other people doing that is currently being called explicit and woke, as if it hurts these people or their body autonomy. It is still, in today's Europe, considered explicit and woke to include women in normal talks, not political, normal daily talks. Not considering the aspects of his sexuality yet, his dad moved to England in his late 20s. George Michael was the youngest of his 3 children, and the only son to a man with traditional Southern European views who, according to George Michael's 2004 interview with GQ, was absent, always busy running a fish and chip shop. Maybe a son is something truly special and sacred in his life. Unlike his wife and daughters, a son can have similar enough of a mentality to see his naked thoughts and warmth. Maybe, ironically, that was one big brick in the wall between them. The nuances of the dynamics between fathers and sons are definitely rarely articulated, but the absence of a father, on the other hand, often by their grown child or children, in a profound way has been put into words so many of a time. While his dad wanted someone sacred, he just wanted to mean at least something in this relationship with his dad. Such a profound reconciliation encased in such simple but emotional words. No matter how out of the lines he might have been, he wanted to be close to and with his dad. Like every man-child, or just child really, he sought the sense of belonging and acceptance. He spent a better half of his life hiding his sexuality from his parents and the world. To quote Boy George, "You're so straight, you must be gay." You could definitely see an overly self-conscious George Michael in interviews during the 80s and 90s. But supposedly, his instinct told him that they could somehow connect, and that would fulfill them. Together, they would be happy. George Michael was born in the 1960s, when a translation that first appeared in 1946 of a word from a body of literature in an obsolete language first took off. The translation apparently somehow made that word mean 2 things at the same time. Gay men, not homos, gay men, as well as pederasty or legalized pedophilia. And by that logic, gay men equals pedophiles. That rhetoric is still seen to this day. Such a clever and wonderfully peaceful set of beliefs, absolutely full of love. So peaceful. The most anti-war one. Thank you for your kindness, but you can just simply keep it to yourself. In the same way, we don't make religions illegal. Don't make yours laws. From the legislative perspective, it was only in 1967 that homosexuality was decriminalized in the UK, and it was by the Sexual Offences Act of 2003 that cruising without the witness of a third party in the UK was decriminalized, not because of its covering of AIDS, which is preceded by Lawrence D. Mass's article on the New York Native, but because of its intentionally sloppy phrasing, a New York Times article on July 3, 1981, by Lawrence K. Altman reporting of, at the time, a dermatologist's statements has been coined as the trigger for the framing of AIDS as gay cancer, the cancer of the homosexual men. People associated homosexuality with AIDS. The rhetoric is still utilized by some people on the internet today, when in the UK, heterosexual contact has now become the leading cause of new HIV diagnoses, again after the late 90s and the 2000s period. And while we're on this topic, it is a good thing to get tested. You should regularly get tested if you participate in unprotected sex with multiple partners. It is first and foremost for your own health. For other STDs too, such as forms of HPVs, some of which can cause severe types of cancer, we should raise awareness about STDs and HIV/AIDS in particular, not stigma. We should call for eradication of the pandemic, not hate. In the meantime, get yourself on PrEP, preferably TAF, tenofovir, alafenamide fumarate. Back to the song. It was only in 1993 that we saw changes in AIDS definition to include more complications in women instead of being focused on infections and cancers that were more prevalent in men, thanks to the advocacy by people like Katrina Haslip. For the entirety of his life up until then, his life was viewed, in his view, mistakenly as a crime. Homosexuality. It's a sin. Also the title to a touching song by the Pet Shop Boys featured in the recent series of the same name. Father Figure and It's a Sin were released the same year, 1987, in December and June, respectively. George Michael also reiterated that very idea in his 2006 interview with ITN. At the moment, I have no legal protection against words like depravity and shame. You can see where my point is coming from. Maybe it is the media that gave him the nudge, but in the time of Roy Cones, the 24-year-old closeted George Michael definitely did take quite a risk to write such lyrics. He had, at multiple occasions, expressed his fulfillment and joy in cruising as part of the gay culture. Heaven is a kiss and a smile. But he was ready to give it all up. What gave him joy? He was ready to have a father figure in the absence of his father, to be his younger self's, his own father figure, because all that little boy wanted was just to feel his tiny hands in his father's. He wanted to feel safe, to be seen, to be accepted, and to be loved. He wanted someone to be there just to hear all that. He now chooses to be that person himself, to acknowledge a big part of him that would continue to hurt his younger self, him tremendously if not addressed. This time he thought his father figure would understand him. At the time, he was himself confused by his own sexuality. In retrospect, it was probably his own denial of his sexuality because of social pressure and his self-anticipated upset to his mother. That's all I wanted, just to see my baby's blue eyes shine. But all three of his boyfriends made public the, in his words, attractive, well over 6-foot cop who arrested him in 1998, Kathy Jung, his father, or even George Michael himself. They all seem to have various shades of brown eyes. So whose eyes was he talking about? If you look at the lyrics in the booklet, it's actually blue-eyed shine, as in blue-eyed soul, not the plural form of blue eye. A recurring theme in this song that it was acceptance that he sought in this particular instance from Farage and his backers white minority London. All he wanted to see was the sense of self-worth and self-acceptance from that young fella. He believed that if he had faith in himself, in each other, he and his younger self, If he believed in his inner feelings, then he could be strong. Or in other words, things would be okay. Due to different self-reflection from different life experiences, different people will come up with different interpretations. A hidden message about his love interest, possibly, wouldn't be the first time someone did that. Wouldn't be the last. But he did say, "I do not sell my life for a living. I sell my music." He also said, "In the present day, my sexuality is being made more of than my music. But my music will last." There's no moral stance to be had in a preemptive strike. There is no Christian justification for attacking first. I think if you have the integrity to protect the oppressed, you do it wherever it happens, not wherever it happens alongside oil. Thank you for everything you do. Some people appreciate it. Now, if we can only get the government to do the same thing,